Subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon, to never miss a video from us. Now we will move to our first module for this exam, which is, Develop for Azure Compute. So let's get started. First is, Azure Virtual Machine. Azure Virtual Machine gives you the flexibility of virtualization computing resources, without having to buy and maintain the physical hardware that runs it. However, you still need to maintain the virtual machine by performing tasks, such as configuring, patching, and installing the software that runs on it. You might require virtual machines for various tasks. Some examples are development and testing. With virtual machines, you can quickly and easily create a computer with specific configurations required to code and test an application. Next is cloud applications. Since there are always fluctuations in demand for an application, it makes economic sense to run it on a VM. You pay for extra VMs when you need them, and shut them down when you don't. Another example is an extended data center. Virtual machines in a virtual network can easily be connected to your organization's network. The following aspects of a VM are important to think about before you start. 1. The names of your application resources. 2. The location where the resources are stored. 3. The size of the VM. 4. The maximum number of VMs that can be created. 5. The operating system that the VM runs. 6. The configuration of the VM after it starts. 7. The related resources that the VM needs. 8. You might require virtual machines for various tasks. Some examples are: when you deploy a virtual machine on the Azure platform, there are a number of other resources which are deployed along with the virtual machine. First is a virtual network, where the virtual machine resides. 2. In addition to the virtual network, we need an OS disk, assigned to the virtual machine, and used for holding the OS level data. You can also add your own data disk on the virtual machine. 4. A virtual network interface card. All of the packets of data that's sent by the virtual machine and received by the virtual machine goes via this network interface. The network interface can get a private and a public IP address. Lastly, we have a network security group, which is assigned to the network interface card. It is like a firewall, used to decide what type of traffic flows in and out of the virtual machine. Here is a diagram showing a deployed virtual machine with its components. Now, in next chapter, we will learn how to deploy a Windows VM. In this chapter, we will learn to deploy a Windows virtual machine in Azure. You can create any new resource through this New Resource button. Or you can also select the service directly and click on Create. Let's create a new VM now. Now we will select the subscription we want to add this resource to. So this resource will be billed against this particular subscription. We can also add a new resource group here, or add this resource to an existing resource group. And give a name for the virtual machine. Then select a region. For now, we will leave the availability options. Next, in the image selection, you have different options to select for images. You can select an image from the drop-down menu, or check the list of images available, and select one according to your needs. Here in the search bar, we will search for available Windows servers, and select a Windows 2019 data center server. Next, we can select the size of the VM as per our requirements. When you select an image, you will be shown an estimated cost of that machine, which is calculated for a machine which runs over a month 24/7. Next we will give it a username and password, which will be used to log in to this virtual machine. Now, in the inbound port rules, we will add a rule to allow traffic on the port 3389. By default, traffic is not allowed to flow into the virtual machine. This is kind of a security boundary. You then create a network security group rules to ensure flow of traffic into the virtual machine. Here, it is automatically adding a rule to allow traffic on port 3389. This is the remote desktop protocol port for the Windows virtual machine. This will then allow us to log into the virtual machine. Next is the disk section. By default, you will have an OS disk that will be assigned to our virtual machine. Now we can choose the type of disk for our OS. If you want high performance, you can keep the default SSD. These disks have encryption enabled by default. Additionally, there are different disk types that are available in Azure for additional usage as per our needs. For example, if we have an application on our virtual machine, that application needs to store data. So we can add an additional data disk for the storage of this data. Also note that, you can add a data disk later on too, even when the virtual machine is in the running state. Now next is networking. Now here, a virtual network is created for you. Since our virtual machine needs to be part of a virtual network. If you already have an existing virtual network, you can also choose that. And note that, the virtual network is a separate resource that's gonna get created along with this. This virtual network and your virtual machine will be created in the same region. Next, for each virtual network, we have a subnet. And we have a public IP address. Now we'll leave the other settings as they are. Next, there are a lot of other settings available for this virtual machine. For now we will leave them as it is, and click Next, to reach the Create section, and then hit on Create. You will get a notification about the deployment. Once the deployment is complete, you can see the details of this virtual machine in its overview section. Now, if you go to All Resources, you can see that there are quite a few resources that were created along with the virtual machine. Now let's move on to learn how to connect to this virtual machine. Now, in this chapter, we will learn how to connect to your virtual machine. You can go to the Overview section of your virtual machine, either through All Resources section, or through the Virtual Machine section. Then select the virtual machine you want to connect. First, ensure that your VM has a public IP address. Next, hit on Connect. And select RDP. RDP is a remote desktop protocol. So, go ahead and download the RDP file. Then open it. It will ask you your username and password. Click on Yes for trusting the server certificate. And now, you can see, we are connected to our Windows virtual machine. When you connect to a Windows Server virtual machine, by default, you'll get the Server Manager dashboard. This Server Manager is used to perform all these tasks on your virtual machine. You can check and see that you can also use the internet from this virtual machine, and you can also install applications, and can host your workloads on this virtual machine. Now, if you go to the File Explorer, you will see that you have two volumes. The first volume is your OS level disk. And then you have a DMB storage that comes along with the virtual machine. Now, in this lesson, we will see how to install an Internet Information Services, which is a web server, on your virtual machine. So, here we are already connected to our virtual machine. And, we are on our Server Manager dashboard. In case, if you can't see Server Manager, you can go to Windows, and here you can find your Server Manager. Server Manager is used to manage the server itself. Now click on Add Roles and Features. This will bring up a window to add the roles and features. Then, click on Next. Select Role-Based or Feature-Based Installation. Click on Next. Choose Default. And click on Next. Now, here, choose Web Server, as this is the role that we want to install. Then click on Add Features. Then Next. And leave all the settings as they are. Click on Next. And on the last window click on Install. Now it is installing the Web Server feature on this Windows virtual machine. After installation is complete, hit on Close. Now, if you open Internet Explorer, and go to the local host, you will see the home page for Internet Information Services. Now remember this, the web server on our Windows virtual machine listens on port 80 by default. Now, if we go back to the Azure portal, we should also be able to browse for Internet Information Services by taking the public IP address of the virtual machine. Because the public IP address is used to interact with the virtual machine from the Internet. So place the public IP address on a new tab. So here, we are not getting the homepage for Internet Information Services. And that is because of the Network Security Group. The Network Security Group is like our virtual firewall. If we want to allow traffic to the virtual machine, we should do a change to the Network Security Group. So let's go to the networking section. Here, you have a set of rules. Now, add an inbound port rule. And leave the source and the source port range as it is. And, in the port range, allow traffic on port 80. Since, the Internet Information Services listens on port 80. Then, select the protocol TCP. And just change the name of the rule, and click on Add. Once you add the rule, you will be able to see the home page for Internet Information Services. So now, you can start installing applications, or your workloads, on your Windows virtual machines. For more such videos, subscribe to our channel.